Outbreaks of rain steadily progressing west to east during the afternoon and into the evening. Then into the weekend, a fine start to Saturday for many, but it turns increasingly windy with some potentially disruptive winds on Sunday.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Long delays on the M62 this evening heading west through Cheshire. The motorway is down to a single lane at junction 9 at the Winwick turnoff. All traffic's been funneled into the inside lane past the scene of an accident, and it's really slow on the M6 in the West Midlands. The two inside lanes are blocked off northbound from junctions 6 to 7 heading north of Birmingham because of an obstruction. One lane's closed on the opposite side of the carriageway from junction 10 to 9, also following a collision, and a lorry's broken down further up on the M6 southbound from the Stafford services to junction 14 towards Stafford, where a lorry's broken down. On the M4 in Berkshire, one lane's closed westbound near junction 7 near Slough, where a car's broken down. On the M27 in Hampshire, the eastbound exit is shut at junction 7, the Hedge End turn-off for emergency repair works. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
There's only good luck.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, tonight as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christys, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. tonight. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight is the night, ladies and gentlemen. Badenoch will face off here on GB News, our exclusive event, Decision Time, taking place at 7 o'clock tonight. So who do you want to see win? Some, I've got to say, are calling it the last chance to save the Tories. Is that a little bit extreme or not? Also, get this, Britain's sickness benefit bill is getting out of control. One of my panellists thinks the whole thing is now a sham. Your thoughts? And have you seen this story? The wife of a Tory councillor and a childminder has been jailed for almost 3 years for a tweet inciting racial hatred on the day of the Southport attacks. What do you reckon to this? Is it a fair sentence or overkill? And we all know by now about the tragic death of Liam Payne, aged just 31 years old. Get this, though, many people blaming it on the media. So I'll put that to one of Britain's most prolific tabloid bosses. But what do you make to it? Also, speaking of young people, by the way, when they first pass their driving test, do you reckon they should be allowed to carry passengers or not? All of that and lots more, but first, the 6 o'clock news.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines just after 6 o'clock. Some breaking news to start with. Israel's foreign minister has confirmed Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar has been killed in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israeli TV stations are also reporting his death. The 62-year-old's death marks a significant victory for Israel amid a series of high-profile assassinations of enemy leaders in recent months. Believed to be the architect of the October 7th attack on Israel that ignited the current conflict, Sinwar has long been a top target for Israeli forces. Meanwhile, Reuters is reporting Hamas sources say indications suggest he has been killed in an Israeli operation in Gaza. Back in the UK, a Tory councillor's wife has been jailed for 2.5 years after stirring up racial hatred against asylum seekers on the day of the Southport attacks. Lucy Connolly, married to Conservative councillor Raymond Connolly, posted a violent message on X calling for mass deportation and arson against hotels housing immigrants. She wrote the post on the day 3 young girls were killed in a knife attack in Southport. The post was deleted after 2 hours and she later apologised, but Connolly was today sentenced to 31 months imprisonment at Birmingham Crown Court. Now, it's being reported that Simon Cowell has stepped down from ITV Britain's Got Talent following One Direction star Liam Payne's tragic death. The Sun newspaper is reporting he will be replaced by Bruno Tognoli in the light of the news. It comes as Liam Payne's family has expressed their heartbreak following his death at the age of 31. In a statement released through a spokeswoman, his family remembered Liam as kind, funny and a brave soul. Fans have gathered outside the hotel in Buenos Aires where he died, lighting candles and leaving flowers in an impromptu visual to pay tribute to the music icon. Liam rose to fame as part of One Direction, one of the biggest pop groups in the world, before their indefinite hiatus in 2016. And thousands of migrants could be granted asylum in the UK as the government pushes to clear a huge backlog of applications. The Refugee Council estimates the number of pending asylum claims could reach almost 120,000 by January, following Labour's decision to scrap the Rwanda plan. New analysis suggests that processing the backlog could see over 62,000 more people recognised as refugees in the UK. It comes as Downing Street says it's committed to ending the use of asylum hotels, despite reports the Home Office may reopen some that were previously closed. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Michelle.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company until 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, I've got my panel, Kelvin Mackenzie, the former editor of The Sun, and Tom Buick, the visiting professor of education at the University of Staffordshire. Good evening to both of you. Kelvin, you had strong opinions there on that Hamas leader being killed in the bulletins, I heard you.
Yes, well, it's excellent news. I mean, he was the organiser of the October the 7th massacre, which started off a chain of events through Gaza, on through Lebanon, potentially onto Iran, and he has paid a price. It's the shame that he died so easily. I wish he'd actually faced judicial procedure and actually faced a firing squad. But this is good news, and it's more likely to accelerate a peace arrangement between Israel and Gaza in some form or another, and that will lead to peace across the region. But honestly, the speed at which Israel is knocking off these military dictators in their own lands is incredible. The intelligence that they must be given, by the way, by not only by Israel finding it out, but the people of Gaza shipping their addresses to these people, the people of Lebanon particularly shipping the names of the directions of where the leaders of Hezbollah live. It is astonishing, incredible. People dislike these military dictators.
Tom Buick, any strong opinions on that story? I've got to say, it's huge news.
It is. Well, look, I mean, my strongest opinion really is to ensure that we get those 101 hostages back. We shouldn't forget they've been in captivity now for over a year. If you'd asked me a year ago, would this war still be going on, I would have said probably not. It's extraordinary, really, that the so-called Hamas, it's a terrorist organisation, still purports to be the government in Gaza. But what we know is a humanitarian crisis is unfolding in that part of the world, and the sooner it ends, the better. Indeed.
Well, you guys, I'm sure, will have very strong opinions on that. There's lots I also want to talk to you about tonight, whether it's about... Have you seen this? The amnesty essentially granted to 60-odd thousand migrants. Really, I mean, certainly, hats and credit where it's due, but is that the way of just clearing the backlog? I want to talk to you about that jailing. Have you seen as well? The wife of the Tory councillor jailed for 31 months for her post about the South, about the riots. Do you remember that? Anyway, look, lots I want to talk to you about. Get in touch with me all the usual ways. GBViews at gbnews.com. Go to the website, or you can tweet or X me. But look, big night tonight, everybody. Johnny. And if you're watching on telly, you will see the countdown clock in the corner. There's just less than an hour to go now before Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch set to go head-to-head on our new exclusive Tory leadership event. Christopher Herp, you are the man hosting said event. He joins us now. Good evening to you. What can we look forward to?
Well, Michelle, welcome to the heart of Westminster, where we'll be helping Tory members and the wider general public decide who should be the leader of the Conservative Party. 85 days so far of campaigning, 14 more days to go. The voting packs have arrived. Members who watch GB News, and 400 or so in this room, maybe have voted already or poised to vote. But tonight we've got a leadership event between Kemi Badenoch behind me and Robert Jenrick. And right now I'm going to toss a coin to find out who goes first. So back up here. Kemi Badenoch, will you call, please?
Heads.
Heads. Tails it is. Kemi Badenoch. Do you want to go first or second, Robert?
I'll go first, Chris.
OK, and there we have it, Michelle. Robert Jenrick first, live on 7 p.m. here on GB News. Decision time. The race to lead will hopefully or maybe shape the future of who leads this party.
Fascinating stuff. I'll be gripped to that, as I know my audience will be too. But for now, I'll let you crack on. Get yourself ready. Do your warm-ups, your star jumps, your press-ups, however it is that those guys will be warming themselves up for that event. Kelvin McKenzie, you just heard then. Robert Jenrick will be going first. What's your thoughts on this whole leadership race?
Well, frankly, with 5 years still to go, I'm not sure how much it matters very much. Obviously, the Tories need a leader. Probably the strongest political leader of our time at the moment is Nigel Farage, who I see actually is now less unpopular than Starmer, which must be. I mean, when you think only 3.5 months ago he won the most enormous landslide, and now he finds himself more unpopular than Farage. On the Tory front, the thing that has helped Jenrick tonight actually is an unexpected effect. Is that Michael Gove, now the editor of The Spectator, having called it a day on his politics, he was going to get slung out anyway, probably, and has endorsed Badenoch. Now, nobody would want Michael Gove's endorsement. After all, he was the one that was endorsing Boris. Look what happened there. He eventually turned around to him, stabbed him very neatly in the chest. So if I'm Kemi, the last person I want, and there is another group of people who don't want seeing an endorsement from Gove for anybody, and that's the Conservative Party faithful, because the Conservative Party faithful still love Boris and regret that Boris is now making probably $5 million a week writing books and making speeches, right? They want him back at centre stage. And the most likely thing to happen 2.5 years from now is that whoever it is, whether it's Badenoch or Jenrick, is that Boris says, I'm here to help. Right, and that will see. So look, personally, I want Jenrick, but you can make an argument for either of them because I don't think they matter.
Oh, harsh words, Tom Buick.
Well, unlike Calvin, I don't have a dog in this fight, so I'm not going to tell you which one I want to win. I mean, frankly, I think both of these candidates for leader of the opposition and therefore potentially a future British Prime Minister are pretty underwhelming. And I think one of the things about this whole Tory leadership psychodrama that's been, at one level, quite fascinating to watch is that not a single one of the candidates, including those that were knocked out, have attempted to give any kind of analysis of why, after 14 years of a Tory government, they left the country in such a parlous state. There's no explanation for the fact that when they won in 2010, they tried to cut their way to economic growth. That didn't work out very well, did it, under George
Well, we're just about to watch Labour do the same.
And Cameron. Well,
we're just about...
Well,
we're watching the largest
let me just
tax cut in history just about to be docked on us.
All right, OK. Great deflection there, Michelle,
don't worry, I'll
the man from the
straight
start.
back in and you come in.
My other 2 points are this. So, they botch the Brexit referendum because Cameron clears off the scene after the 2016 vote. Indeed, it instructed the civil service not even to put a plan in place for the country when it just voted to leave. And then, of course, the so-called Conservative Party. I mean, look, you can respect the Conservative philosophy going all the way back to Edmund Burke, freedom, liberty, the small platoons and all the rest of it. Where was that during the pandemic? We had some of the most draconian laws that were passed that, frankly, curtailed our civil liberties in ways that not even our grandparents
Starmer
and
wanted them to be
great-grandparents.
tougher, actually, if you remember.
Well,
if Starmer had been in charge, we would have still been locked down today. Don't worry about that. He was a guy who absolutely does not allow personal freedoms to get in the way with his ideas, except if it means free tickets for the whole cabinet.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, Calvin, is that there will be Conservative card-carrying members watching this and tuning into the debate tonight who will be wondering what happened to the Conservative government between 2010 and 2024, albeit they were in a coalition for the first 5 years.
Honestly, you won't find
has
any...
one of these candidates articulated a Conservative vision for this country, other than we've got honest Bob, Jenrick's, out promising 2p cut in income tax?
I think because, actually, the beating heart of the Conservative Party has actually moved towards Farage. And I think the problem now for any kind of Conservative leadership is, who are we, right? We seem to know at some stage. It wasn't entirely clear who we were, but we lost it during that time. Absolutely agree with that. And now Nigel Farage seems to be able to enunciate the thought process of people who used to be conservatism. And this is a massive problem for anybody who's the leader. Yeah. And I agree with you. Unless we have a thought process which people can feel like that, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. And when I look at the latest polling, if I am a Conservative leader right now, I am saying to myself, really? Instead of the reform collapsing, as you might have expected, third party going back to 12%, they actually put on one to 19%. And now they find themselves, because there's no Conservative leader, they find that Farage is the least unpopular of all the leaders. How did this happen? And that is their problem. And whether Jenrick could do it or Badenoch could do it, I don't know. It may well be that it may not be Boris, but somebody is going to come along in those 5 years. The idea that that whoever's the leader now is still in situ in 5 years' time is for the birds.
Well, that's why there's a real post-1997 feel about this Tory party, in the sense that we had William Hague. He went on a log flume and wore a baseball cap, but he didn't go very much further than that. So I suspect, actually, when we're talking about who's going to seriously challenge Labour in a general election, that member of Parliament may not even be elected, actually, within the Conservatives, maybe somewhere in the future.
Michael, one of my viewers, he says, in capital, so that's when you know someone means business, he says, bring back Boris. He said it's the Tories' only hope, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. So who do you want to win in the meantime? Kevin, he's backing Kemi. Archie, he's backing Jenrick. Steve, he's got in touch and said, what's all that coin flipping all about? Whatever happened to good old chivalry? Ladies first. He says, I'm not really sure that's the way it would work. I also, as well, have heard a lot of criticism about where has Kemi been recently? That's what people are asking. Where has she been? Will she answer questions straight? Philip is asking, will they commit to restoring the pensioners' winter fuel payment? That is on the minds of a lot of you at home. Let me know your thoughts on that one, though. Who do you want to see win? After the break, I want to talk to you about a story that certainly raised a lot of eyebrows. The wife of a Tory councillor, she has been jailed for 31 months. This is, of course, when she tweeted out on the day of the Southport killings. What about this? Do you think it's a fair sentence or not? You tell me.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for The Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles, and so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that, touch at the heartstrings, and this is certainly one of those. And I think it's the first time we've actually seen Catherine back in, a royal duty since she herself confirmed that she'd finished chemotherapy.
Done so much, haven't they, the Princess of Wales and the King, to raise awareness for these cancers.
Here we have both the King and Catherine having, explained to the nation and the rest of the world that they were battling, or are still battling, cancer, just like everyone else.
How sincere is all of this? I mean, it looks like she's a wonderful, kind, caring woman, but I don't know. I've never met her.
Well, she is a wonderful, kind, caring woman. That is without a shadow of a doubt. And William heard about this young lady on a visit to the air ambulance, and they invited her because she's a photographer, so she wanted to take she has a bucket list and wanted to take pictures of an investiture. I mean, make no mistake, people like Catherine are just absolutely wonderful in what they do and how they do it. I mean, and Catherine is the superstar of the royal family. Of that, there is no doubt.
It's the cockles of my heart, Charles. It really does. It's really good to see you. Thanks very much.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Charles. Thanks. And Liz, who is the 16-year-old amateur photographer who was hugged by Princess of Wales yesterday, said it was a dream come true.
I bet it was.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside me, Kelvin McKenzie and Tom Buick remain alongside me. Keep your thoughts on that Tory leadership race coming in. Don't forget, you've got your countdown clock there on the screen. You've got about 40-odd minutes now until that takes place live and exclusively here on GB News. But look, this story has certainly caught my eye. We, of course, all remember the so-called riots that took place and Keir Starmer's harsh kind of clampdown on it, and we've seen people, haven't we, fast-tracked through the court system. Well, today it was the turn of the 41-year-old Lucy Connolly. She is a childminder and the wife of a Tory councillor. She has been jailed today for 31 months for apparently, well, she pleaded guilty, I've got to say, inciting racial hatred on X the day of those Southport attacks. Now, let me just remind you, in case you're not familiar with this, the tweet that she sent out, obviously I've blurred some of the swear words. It says, set fire to all the bleep hotels full of the bleeps. This was, of course, on the day of the stabbing in Southport that left the 3 young children dead. And if that makes me a racist, then so be it. What do you think to this sentence, 31 months for this lady?
I'm astonished about it, frankly. Look, this is a stupid tweet. I'm not trying to defend the tweet in any way. But 31 months, 2.5 years, is an astonishing sentence. And the thing is that the judge is not really publicly brought to book to explain. So, for instance, you could carry out grievous bodily harm, attempted murder, or any of that stuff, and you wouldn't get 2.5 years. It's a very odd imbalance in the public eye of it. I would like to see this judge, who's the Recorder of Birmingham, so he's a KC, so he is obviously a substantial figure, right? I would like to see an explanation, because the major explanation that seems to be being handed down is that the Prime Minister and the Justice Secretary have indicated that they want to see harsh sentences for this kind of written stupid tweet or Facebook post. I am massively hostile to this. And when you think of the kind of people, the sex offenders who don't go to jail, and the other people who don't go to jail right now because there's no room, we seem to be able to find room for some woman with a previously impeccable background. All right, she may be thick. That may be a really stupid tweet. But is it something that's really worth 2.5 years? You could literally kill. In fact, look, without going too far into it, look at Manchester. Look at Manchester right now. A chap breaks a PC's nose, a woman PC's nose, and here we are months later and nobody has been charged. How incredible. These people were charged at the moment and basically they were told to plead guilty. What they should have done, my advice to you, anybody who's watching, is play it long, plead not guilty, right? The idea that you could do worse than 2.5 years for this kind of nonsense, because the back end of that tweet actually said, also throw the government ministers on the fire effectively as well. So clearly it was not a thought-out, developed, I'll meet you down by the pub and we'll charge the place. This was just a woman rattling it out. Honestly, Starmer owes an apology to the people that he's put to jail. They are stupid, but he is malevolent.
Tom Buick, very strong words there from Kelvin. I'm not sure I would take legal advice from you because you are not a lawyer, so I do have to just make that clear, by the way.
Yeah.
Tom Buick, your thoughts?
And I won't be offering any legal advice either because I'm not a qualified lawyer or even an amateur lawyer for that matter. But look, the tweet is abhorrent, and I think it's just worth also informing viewers, Michelle, that there were other mitigating circumstances. It wasn't just this single tweet, including, I understand, actually the individual who was deregistered as a childminder continued to work in that role. So I think there were other issues, actually. But
that didn't add to the sentence, or it didn't do much for her character.
But it didn't add to the sentence. It didn't particularly do very much, of course, for her character. But putting that aside, look, I think we need to be clear about what is the point of our justice system. Yes, it's about retribution in the eyes of the public. Yes, it should certainly be about rehabilitation. This was her first offence, but I think the explanation for this, by the way, Calvin, is very clear. I think, as we've seen down the ages, when, there's certain sorts of disorder that happens in our society, judges and magistrates will make an example of people. And I think we've seen this with the response to Southport. Do you think that tweet... OK, let me ask you a question then, Tom. Do you believe that tweet would have incited anybody to anything?
I want to give can I just give this full tweet, please? Yeah, I think it's important because, we're pulling out snippets. I do think it's important. So she said this: mass deportation now. Set fire to all the bleep hotels full of the bleeps for all I care. And while you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what those families will now have to endure, and if that makes me racist, then so be it.
That seems pretty reasonable to me. The back end of that, the idea of throw another minister on the fire, right? I tell you what, I can remember a Tory cabinet minister saying that to me about toss another socialist on the fire. That is. In fact, humour. You may not like it, but that's humour. And also, it was on the day of Southport. The top end is simply stupidity, and the woman is clearly dim. But does she really deserve 2.5 years? Honestly, Tom, in the whole time of all the people you've known, have you ever known anybody get 2.5 years for anything?
Yeah, but the point I'm just trying to make is we either accept that we've got a judiciary where there will be flexibility for judges to take in all the circumstances, including, by the way, in certain circumstances, making an example out of individuals as a means of a deterrence in our criminal justice system, because the last thing we want are yet more keyboard warriors popping up with those kind of abhorrent tweets. She's entitled to her view. This was not a personal diary entry. This is the equivalent now when you're online in the public square. I do believe in free speech, but there has to be also limits to free speech in the sense of just as you can't go into a pub and abuse someone,
I agree with you.
Smack them around the head.
I agree with you.
You shouldn't be saying that migrants should be burnt in their hotels.
Yeah, I'm not Elon Musk. Right, I'm not a total free speecher. Absolutely buy that. But what I'm also saying, when people cross the line, I think you've got to take into account, A, their background, and actually, what does it mean, and did it really hurt anybody? And the reason these judges are laying this on the line is because they want preferment within the judicial system, right? They want to be thought good people within the liberal establishment that runs our country. Actually, Starmer's one of them. He would warm to that 2.5 years, which shows how out of touch he is with ordinary people. People are stupid, and I can see her getting a suspended sentence for this. I could even see her being fined. The idea of 2.5 years, you'd have to kill somebody.
Yeah, which is why, Cameron, do you know what I think the most appropriate punishment, actually, for this woman would have been?
Well, hold that thought. You can tell us after the break. Okay. Tom Buick is going to tell us, so hold your thoughts. You will have very strong opinions on this. I know some of your strength for feeling on this. Get in touch with me. I'll bring you into the conversation after the break. There's lots more as well coming up. See you then.
Hi there, time for the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells overnight will lead to foggy conditions for many by dawn, and then it turns increasingly windy ahead of an unsettled weekend. Low pressures approaching for Friday, but ahead of that, the isobars are actually opening out. That means lighter winds overnight with clear spells, temperatures falling away, and With the relatively moist ground already in place, we're going to see mist and fog forming in many spots, but particularly central and eastern and southern England, East Wales as well. So some poor visibility on the roads first thing, a fresher start compared with recent mornings, 5 to 9 Celsius likely. But watch out, if you are travelling during the morning, there'll be some dense and widespread fog around. Not everywhere will get the fog, but where it does occur could lead to some very poor visibility. Away from the fog, some sunny spells across parts of England and Wales, central and eastern Scotland. But for western Scotland, already the first signs of a more unsettled spell arriving with outbreaks of rain and a freshening wind. Likewise for Northern Ireland, the first spell of rain moving in by 8 or 9 in the morning. It turns increasingly unsettled then across northwestern parts of the UK, with the strongest winds expected in the northwest of Scotland, accompanied by heavy rain and high tides. Could lead to significant impacts during the day. Once the fog clears across central and eastern parts, though, it's a fine afternoon. In the Midlands, eastern and southeastern England, sunny skies and 17 Celsius. But a contrast by Saturday morning as the rain moves east, and it's a wet start to the weekend through the Midlands and eastern England. The rain does slowly peel away, but it takes all day in some places. Brighter skies arrive from the west, albeit with a few showers. And then later Saturday, a deep low arrives from the Atlantic, resulting in a very wet and very windy day on Sunday.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. There are long delays up in West Yorkshire on the M1. The motorway is partly blocked southbound from junction 46 to 45 towards Leeds, where a car has broken down. In Cheshire on the M62, the motorway is down to a single lane westbound at junction 9, the Winnock exit. Everyone's been funneled into the inside lane past the scene of a collision. Of course, that's just north of Warrington. On the M6 in the West Midlands, 2 lanes are closed northbound from junction 6 to 7 north of Birmingham, where a lorry's broken down. And on the M4 in Berkshire, a car's broken down eastbound from junction 5 to 4B towards the M25 east of Slough. That's where a car's broken down. And in East London, heading into the capital, the A13 is closed at the Prince Regent Lane underpass and Newham for accident investigation work. Queues start from before the Beckton roundabout at the North Circular. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Tom Buick and Kelvin McKenzie remain alongside me. Well, look, you can see on the screen there the countdown clock. Not long to go now, ladies and gents, until we host the exclusive face-off, if you would like, between, you've got Kemi Badenoch on the one side, Robert Jenrick on the other. And what you're seeing right now is that central London location. People are sitting, they are ready. It's getting exciting. Is your excitement levels rising?
I quite like the idea of GB News running this debate, because this is something that the BBC declined to do, and because they wanted to put in a whole load of people who weren't Tories into it in order to shout and boo. So correctly, Jenrick and Badenoch went and that was the end of that. So the GB are doing a great thing for democracy. It'd be very interesting, the debate, and actually if Badenoch plays to a normal personality, she's going to say something extremely controversial.
I've got to say, I wouldn't mind being there, actually. I think it would be absolutely riveting to hear both sides, listen to how directly or not perhaps each of them will answer Christopher Hope's questions. Tom Buick.
Well, I'm hoping Calvin will take me along as his +1
Is that what you want to be?
after the show, you know.
Who would have thought you'd ever have wanted to be Kelvin McKenzie's +1?
There's a queue.
He knows I have a soft spot for him, really.
Well,
something we need to talk about off air.
There you go. Look, ladies and gents, you've got 28 minutes to go, just over, before GB News, we here host this exclusive event, Decision Time, the race to lead. Make sure you get in touch with me and tell us who do you want to see win this debate. today. And one of the key issues for you, I told you at the start, Philip, one of the viewers, he's already been in touch saying he wants to see both of them essentially pledge to restore the winter fuel allowance. Would you share that? Do you ever see it happening there or not? But there you go. That is the live feed that you're seeing there from that central location. The audience is sitting there ready and waiting to go live at 7 o'clock here on GB News. Now, let's go back to the conversation we were just having before the break. Lucy Connolly, the wife of the Tory councillor, jailed for 31 months for that tweet that she sent on the day of the Southport events. Mass deportation now. Set fire to all the bleep hotels full of the bleeps for all I care. And while you're at it, take the treacherous government and politicians with them. I feel physically sick knowing what those families will now have to endure. And if that makes me racist, then so be it, she said. You were saying before the break, I'll tell you what I think should have happened. Go on then.
Well, as a first offence, I don't think she should have got this custodial offence, although sentence. Although, of course, after 31 months, I think she'd be out potentially after 15 months. Still, that's a long time if you haven't been to prison before. What I would have done is actually issued a community order. Judges have this at their disposal. And in fact, the thing that she should have done as a part of a community service, in my view, is been assigned to voluntary groups that have to work with refugees and migrants. I think that might have given her a perspective then on the tweet that she wrote and the way in which she wrote that tweet. And essentially, in my view, she incited hatred and violence towards that particular group. That would have, I think, been a more appropriate sentence, and she may have actually then learned something from it.
Do you know, I've got to say, because before the break you was using words like stupid and dim and all the rest of it. So just for the record, I absolutely don't condone what she wrote. I think it was absolutely wrong. I think she was right to apologise and she was right to have taken it down, and I think it was the wrong thing to have tweeted. But it's all well and good in the cold light of day sitting in a studio pontificating about she could have done this and she could have done that. What people have got to remember is this was a mother who, very sadly in her own private life, had lost a child. She was filled with the emotion that everybody felt, that there was these little girls that had just gone dancing. That was all they'd done. They'd just gone dancing. And then the news poured in that they had been hacked to death. Now, anyone, you don't need to be a mother, but especially when you're a mother, the feeling, the visceral emotion that you feel, it's overwhelming. We've all had in our minds as well what the recent scenes that you've seen in Parnell Square in Dublin, where you saw those little girls and a little boy, again, slashed with a knife coming out of their primary school. We saw the scenes, the horrendous scenes in Annecy, where you saw babies hacked to death by a man in there, when the babies was in their pushchairs in a pram. So you've got all of these emotions flying through you. You will have rage with the government, and that was reflected in that tweet as well. There was a sense that the truth was being withheld, not saying that that was the truth or not. I'm saying that that was the sense at the time. And I just feel, again, I need to clarify, it was wrong to have tweeted. I don't agree with it. Yes, she should have taken it down, and yes, she should have apologised. And no, I don't think you can suggest that people set fire to hotels with people in it, obviously. But I do think that that fury that people feel, and I remember when people were in Dublin protesting the Parnell Square, the primary school there, and all those people kept getting called far right and all stuff like this, and it was apparently, and I need to be careful because there's a few live cases going on, but you knew that there was a Syrian man that had apparently been, engaging with the police about and accused of doing the one in Annecy. I think it was an Algerian one that's going through the process in Dublin. So then you have this fury. It's understandable. It's not
Michelle,
right. It's understandable.
Sure. But everything that you've said, everything you've said, Michelle, though, is precisely. Look, and I wasn't there in the court, and I haven't read a transcript as to what, for example, her defence lawyer put forward. But everything you've just said,
it wasn't much of a defence, by the way.
Well,
you can't really defend that. It's the wrong thing to say. It's indefensible.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, but defence lawyers will always put forward, like I believe you just have, quite passionately, is a sort of mitigating circumstances. There are always mitigating circumstances. Look, we've just had. Let's just say a major former television presenter who's just escaped a custodial sentence, in part because mental health was played as a particular card in those mitigating circumstances, avoided a custodial sentence. So I can see why you're angry. I can see why lots of people would be angry, because it does play into this narrative that we have a two-tiered justice system. My only kind of key point here was just around the fact that we either want a judicial system to have some flexibility. This judge has to account for what he has done. But as I say, I think the real reason for this is because, unfortunately, she's being made an example of. That's why she's got such a harsh
she should appeal.
sentence.
I mean, she'd be the second woman. There was another lady, right? I agree. The words dim and all the rest of it are quite wrong. And the idea of passion, but passion can get you in a lot of trouble coming out of a pub, can't it? When you're drunk.
And
so
you have to.
So she should not. She should have been charged. In my view, should have been charged. And actually, she should have got the kind of sentence that you got for careless driving. Frankly, there was no justification for this.
What about a community order?
Or a community order? I don't mind. Anything that is not custodial. For basically a written offence is completely wrong. And I'd like that judge, actually, he's never going to do it, but I'd like that judge to come on GB News and explain, well, why did I do it? Was it for the point that's being made? Really, by Michelle.
We know why he did it, because he was told.
I don't know what. No, if you read what he said, he basically turned around and said, well, you are a racist, and what you were going to incite people, and I'm going to jail you. The idea you'd be incited by the thousands of tweets that you see of this kind, or equivalent of this kind, is for the birds. So the judge, to my mind, should actually... he should actually stand aside for a while and think about whether actually he's in touch with the way people think or the way that the law works right now. I don't think so.
I mean, look, I have to reiterate, because I know how things get clipped up on social media and all the rest of it. I do not think you should be suggesting that people set fire to hotels with people in them. No sane-minded individual would think that's OK. It's abhorrent. And I can't even imagine what those people in that hotel would have gone through. It would have been terrifying, I'm absolutely sure. But come on, every day of the week I sit here telling you guys at home that yet another wrong-un criminal has escaped justice. Yet another wrong-un has avoided and come away with a suspended sentence instead of being locked up, because apparently these prisons are full to bursting, and people, we've seen them get released from prison early. They go out, they repeat crimes, but yet now apparently we've got this prison space for 31 years, or about 40% of that service sentence for this lady. And by the way, if we want to act on deterrence, why was that fella who was tweeting that Muslims were getting acid attacked when there was no evidence at all of that, and the police were actually saying that that wasn't happening to the best of their knowledge? What about deterring that kind of behaviour? What happened there?
Well, here's a good question then for coming up for 7 o'clock, right? So Starmer is massively in favour of this. As a KC, right? By the way, can't afford a Taylor Swift ticket or suits, but he did very well for himself while he was doing it for about 30-odd years of representing human rights. He was massively in favour of these sentences. Can we ask Jenrick, or can we ask Badenoch, are you in favour of these sentences, or would you like to see them having no sentences at all, or very reduced sentences?
Well,
and so
that is a very good question.
This is a big issue. So somebody like Farage is quite clear on this, right? That this is an outrage, much of this, right? So it's a political issue now. Starmer has made it a political issue.
But I've also been on this show, right, where we've discussed the Just Stop Oil numpties, and go and use criminal damage and throw soup over people. And you've been high-fiving it and saying, isn't it great they've got a custodial sentence?
If they want to try and destroy a Da Vinci, right? I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying, in this case, she should never, ever, ever have been jailed, and that judge needs to account himself to the public.
And I'll respond, by the way, because I'm one of those people that have been high-fiving the lengthy sentences that were given to a collection of Just Stop Oil people, and I'll tell you for why. Those people had, in some cases, criminal records as long as your arm for similar behaviour. Some of them were out on bail for some of those previous behaviours. There was very long, prolonged intention behind what they were doing. They weren't just chucking a can of soup or something like that. They intended to bring this country down to an absolute halt by blocking the motorway networks. That would have affected healthcare. It would have affected food, all transport, logistics, you name it. That was such a serious crime. That's not the same as a mother, a bereaved mother at that, by the way, losing her mind temporarily with the absolute... You can't comprehend what these little girls went through at that moment. And I'm not justifying it. It was wrong. What she did, what she said was wrong. But what I'm saying is 31 months in prison for that. I find it embarrassing. Sorry, I would be hanging my head in shame, actually, if I was involved in some of that. I really would.
Look, there is a concept in British law of sort of diminished responsibility. I think that should have been put forward as part of her defence.
It wasn't. It wasn't.
But it clearly wasn't. And just going back briefly to, because at the time, look, I agreed with those custodial sentences for those people, as you say, that tried to bring this country to a standstill, prevented, for example, grieving people from getting to hospitals to see their dying relatives. No one wants to go back to that or in any way try to justify that. But, again, I don't know the details of the exact case, but I do remember reading about one woman who didn't have a prior criminal record, who has been sent to prison as a result of that.
How long did she get?
I don't know. I mean, I want to say on air, but the point is, there are others in this situation.
Well, look, very strong feelings here, very different opinions here, and that will be reflected in your households at home as well, I'm absolutely sure. But get in touch, let me know your thoughts. There is lots I want to discuss with you. Liam Payne, for example, what a tragic, senseless death, 31 years old. Some people blaming the media. What do you think?
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week, Free Speech Brighton, a sister group of the Free Speech Union, claimed that they were kicked out of a pub in the city for discussing trans issues in schools. The group booked a room in a pub for an evening of speeches and discussion when they claimed security guards came and asked them to leave after one speaker began to talk about this topic. Now, a clip of the evening was, in fact, posted to social media. Can you give us some background to what happened, what the event was for, and why you booked it?
Our normal pub was being refurbished, so about 3 weeks ago I went in and booked a local pub for a meeting, and they didn't ask any questions about what sort of meeting. It was in a back room. It was mainly secluded from the rest of the pub, so I thought it would be fine. But anyway, they didn't ask any questions. They took my booking. We arrived, I set up. The first speaker started speaking, who's a retired teacher who is concerned about trans in schools and how that affects children. But she was talking purely about children. She was not talking about adults who have protected characteristics, obviously. And then towards the end of her speech, I became aware of security guards standing behind me in the middle room. So I went to have a quick word with them and see what they wanted. And they said, we've had a complaint. And I said, what's the complaint? And they wouldn't say. Then they said, will you come and talk to the landlord? So I went to the front of the bar and they indicated this chap was the landlord, but he looked about 20, so I don't think he was the landlord. So I said, I hear you have a complaint about us. Can you tell me what it is? And he couldn't.
That sounds very Kafkaesque, as though you've committed a crime, but they can't tell you what the crime
is. That's what I couldn't understand, because, you might... Obviously, they can't tell you who the complainant is, but they should be able to tell you what the complaint is.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, Michelle Dewberry with you till 7 o'clock. Kelvin Mackenzie, the former editor of The Sun, and Tom Buick, the visiting professor of education at the University of Staffordshire, remains alongside us. Look at this, everybody. Live pictures right now. You can see your countdown clock. 13 and a bit minutes to go now until we cross live to the event that you've all been waiting for. We're certainly very excited about it here in this studio.
Speak for yourself.
OK, Tom. Yeah, he's playing hard to get, Tom. He's a Labour man. man. He reckons he's not excited, but I bet secretly.
Do you know what? Looking at that countdown clock, I got more excited the other night with my daughters watching the Elon Musk rocket countdown going off than looking at that.
No, he didn't. A minute ago in the break, he was saying to us, it looked really good, and he wished that he could go with Kelvin.
Oh, you caught me out.
So there you go. I caught him out now. Don't listen to him. Decision time, the race to lead. That is at 7 o'clock tonight, exclusively here on GB News. Now, a couple of things I want to ask you about. We talk about long-term sickness quite a lot, don't we? Let's cut to the chase. They've been suggesting sending job coaches into hospitals to try and help people. Is that the time and the place, hospitals?
Well, something has to be done. The idea that you are going to be better off by literally lying in bed all day rather than doing 16 hours work, you'll be better off to the tune because of benefits.
Yes, but the job coaches in the hospital, that's what my specific question is. Is that the right strategy or not?
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Blimey, even for you? Is it a step too far even for you?
No, it's got no idea of working. These people are lazy, no matter what encouragement you give to them.
If they're in hospital, then there's something wrong with them, isn't they? If they're in hospital.
Well, I don't know how wrong they are. Most of them would have swallowed Black's medical dictionary. They know all the ways of creating symptoms.
Kelvin. Tom Buick.
I do sometimes wonder whether Calvin was actually in a previous life, the original drafter of the Elizabethan Poor Law, because that's still how he speaks in the 21st century.
Right,
look, it's a scandal that we've got 3 million people of working age in this country who've been signed off sick. In fact, if you look at our current unemployment rate, the job seekers allowance rate, it's quite low, isn't it? It's about 3 to 4%. But actually, if you look at the numbers on long-term sick, it's 6.6%. So actually, if you added those two together, we've got a double digits unemployment rate in this country. That's the kind of the way that I look at it. And really importantly, since 2020, we're spending 16 billion quid more a year now on this group than we were pre the pandemic.
And it's due to go to 100 billion by the end of the decade.
And talking about 100 billion, Calvin, we're spending 102 billion pounds just on debt interest in this country for the massive...
By the way, that's just about to come down.
The Tories, by a few
no,
pounds.
It'll come down by quite
still,
a lot.
Though, the annual budget of the Department for Education, right?
Okay.
But the point is, this is yet another example of the waste, the bills of economic and social failure.
But what is
in
the
this
answer
country
to it? What is the answer to it, Tom?
I'll tell you what the answer is. We've got to get away from, for example, this stricter benefits regime, because this is what's happening, I think, in employment centres. The people who are on job seekers allowance. What happens is you've got people who then get parked on the long-term sick because they can't turn up every 2 weeks and give the proof that they're looking for work because it's a work-first sort of approach. I think we've got to build a far more holistic strategy around it. I don't want to sound like a bleeding heart
It's
liberal.
that kind of attitude which has led to everybody saying, I tell you what, I'll take my job seekers allowance money and I'll add PIP onto the top of it, right? And I'll put the whole lot together and suddenly I am making so much money that even on 16 hours work, I cannot, it's not in my interest to do it. We either cut benefits or we will have this discussion in a decade's time.
But my point, Calvin, is I wouldn't let them go on to PIP, or some of them anyway. Those obviously do, through a GP assessment, do need to go on to long-term sick, got mental health issues, got substance abuse issues. They need intervention at an earlier stage.
How can we have ADHD, depression, depression, anxiety and all the rest of it? If people want to pretend that they have it, or even if they have it in a little way, they've still got to go to work. Work is the salvation of the working classes, as you well know, Tom. And I don't think you've done any work lately, so... But...
well, I don't know. Sitting alongside you for an hour, that's probably hard graft, isn't it? Having to front up to him.
They can't pay me enough to do
well,
that.
there you go. Look, Val says, Michelle, I just want to say that I do agree with the upset that Lucy faced, but she says you just can't go around writing stuff like that on social media. I hear you, Val. Pretty much everyone would agree. But whether or not 31 months is the right punishment, you guys will be the judge of. You're saying, lots of you, pretty much all of you, quite frankly, saying that 31 months, in your opinion, was way too harsh. But again, I've got to say that sentiment is coming through thick and fast, that no one thinks it's OK that you should be going around suggesting that people set fire to buildings, whatever buildings they are, with people in it. Lots of you asking what happened to the sentencing of that Labour councillor who's been accused of saying things about slitting people's throats. Well, that hasn't yet gone to trial, so that's why you haven't had an outcome on that one. Look, you will have seen the horrific news regarding the One Direction star Liam Payne, 31 years of age. It stopped me in my tracks when I heard this last night. Absolutely tragic. I've got to say, though, Kelvin, you know, I don't have long left on the programme, but I do want to put this to you, because a lot of people are saying that the media, particularly tabloid media, are responsible for a lot of what happens to some of these young superstars. You edited a tabloid for a very long time. Your thoughts?
Had nothing to do with it. This guy was not well for a very long time. And I actually feel sorry for Simon Cowell getting a bucket load from somebody I'd never heard of before, who suddenly wants to put their name up in lights and saying that he and others in the show business area were responsible in some way for his death. Actually, people like Cowell and co. actually put tens of hundreds of millions of dollars to this guy, who may well have gone down that exactly the same route, but been broke. So that was completely unfair. And so it's terrible the guy should die, but it's nobody else's fault except his.
Harsh. Tom?
I agree with Calvin. I don't think you can blame the media for what is obviously a very tragic case. I just happened to stumble across, actually, on social media, quite a harrowing video this young man made just an hour, actually, before you know, he sadly lost his life. And it's just very clear that he's unwell. And, you know, it just makes me sad, actually, that when these sorts of things go out on social media, that there aren't those, you know, obviously he was a long way away in Argentina, but you know, I just sort of think to myself, if that was here in the UK, would someone have been able to see that he was clearly very unwell and would have got to him and supported him?
I presume he's been very unwell for a very long time now, hasn't he? That seems to be the general
I saw the video that, I think the same video that you're referring to me, it looked perfectly fine and happy and well. It actually stopped me. And one of the things that I found pretty damn grotesque, actually, is the lengths that people have been going to dig around to try and get dirt on this young man. People even posting images of his body as he lay there. I think it's an absolute disgrace, and I think everyone's got to take a moment to remember that this is somebody's son, brother, loved one, and of course it's a little boy's daddy. A 7-year-old little boy today was probably woken up to find the news that his daddy is no longer. And I think sometimes in the quest, in the surge, in the desperation to get those clicks, those hits, those headlines, whatever it is, I think people sometimes do forget that there's human beings behind those headlines absolutely struggling. But look, obviously thoughts with his loved ones. For now, though, Tom, thank you very much for your company. Kelvin McKenzie, for you as well with yours. I can't believe, though, I've got to the point where even you think that sending job coaches into the hospital is perhaps a step too far. I think I might need to lay him down.
He's after a new job,
I think I need to lay him down at the back of this thing, put a cloth on his head and make sure he's all right. But
it's a waste of time.
That's all we've got there. That's from us tonight. But look, do not go anywhere, because the moment is about to begin. You've got Jenrick v Badenoch live and exclusive here on GB News. Do not miss it.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, time for the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Clear spells overnight will lead to foggy conditions for many by dawn, and then it turns increasingly windy ahead of an unsettled weekend. Low pressures approaching for Friday, but ahead of that the isobars are actually opening out. That means lighter winds overnight with clear spells, temperatures falling away, and with the relatively moist ground already in place, we're going to see mist and fog forming in many spots, but particularly central and eastern and southern England, East Wales as well. So some poor visibility on the roads first thing, a fresher start compared with